by Jaga. Good morning and welcome to Whenever You Are. I am Bandit Haze, and today I'm going to be talking about 80s cartoons because they just don't make them like they used to anymore. Though to be fair, that's probably a good thing. Alright, now before we get into this, for those of you who might not remember the 80s, which according to YouTube analytics is about a quarter of you, here's what you need to know for now. The 80s was a time of big hair, synthesizers, and an AIDS epidemic. The internet did exist, but it was something that next to nobody had, and even fewer people actually even heard of. So if we wanted to find out something, we had to go to a place called the library. Maybe you've heard of these, perhaps there's an old one in your town. Probably been turned into a Starbucks or something by now though. We did have digital media in the form of compact discs, but they actually took quite a while to become really popular, so mostly we bought music on vinyl or cassette tape, or if you were poor, you would buy a blank cassette tape and then record stuff off the radio. And pray, you never know the frustration of waiting hours upon hours upon hours for your favorite song to come on the radio, press record, and then the DJ talks all over it like, oh my days. Anyway, as far as television goes, in the UK we had 3 channels, not 3,000 or 300, no, we had 3 television channels. But that was only up until 1982, and then there was a massive increase all the way up to 4 channels. But as being a child in the 80s, there's only really 2 sets of programs that had anything of any real interest. And that was Children's ITV, which was on the ITV channel, and then Children's BBC, which was on the BBC channel. So yeah, we had very creative names. So now let me talk to you guys about some of the must-see, rush home from school for television shows that we had back then. First of all, now, He-Man was the story of Prince Adam of Eternia, who was really just a much more muscular version of Clark Kent, except without the glasses. And seriously, how did nobody notice that Prince Adam and He-Man are the same person? I mean, they look exactly the same. At least Clark Kent tries to disguise himself. Anyway, he had a pet green tiger, not a tiger, more of a scaredy pussycat type thing called Cringer, and they just went about their day. But when the evil Skeletor started causing trouble in the neighborhood, the Fresh Prince of Eternia would call on the power of Grayskull and turn into the manliest of all men. He was strong, he had a deep, majestic voice, and he wore a sports bra. I mean, I guess it was supposed to be chest armor, but I guess it's a good thing he never got stabbed in the stomach or caught arrows like Ace Ventura. By the way, for those who complain about female body armor in video games, well, now you know the origins of that. Anyway, Prince Adam would become He-Man and Cringer would become Battle Cat, a strong, badass beast. And also, Cringer didn't like the process of being changed into Battle Cat. In fact, he hated it, but He-Man would change him anyway, just as and when he deemed necessary. Now, I'm not sure if any of those themes were deliberate because, to be fair, it is a bit typical of 80s children's cartoons. But if it was deliberate, then what's the message? Quit being a pansy and be a real man. And real men wear sports bras and force animals into slave labor. Anyway, my favorite character was Evelyn, mainly because she had a really cool name, you know, Evelyn. It just sounded so cool. But she was actually a very terrible character and at least just a little bit incompetent. And speaking of incompetence, let me talk to you guys about Shira. Now, Shira was the spin-off to He-Man, I guess to appeal more to girls, but it was so retarded. Here's the thing, Shira had much more interesting characters than He-Man, had overall better story and storytelling. The theme music till this day is lit. But Shira, the titular character, was the least important person there. She's not even in the first 2 episodes. Well, I mean, she is, but she's there as Adora and doesn't become Shira until the end of episode 3. So the opening story is about how Prince Adam is sent from another planet to deliver a sword to someone who turns out to be Adora, but Adora is working for the bad guys because she's under their spell. So He-Man does most of the rescuing until episode 3 when he's captured, and then the sorceress from He-Man, the one that sent him, contacts Adora through the sword to tell her that she was kidnapped at birth, that Adam is her twin brother, other, and she should let the sword guide her. So effectively, we're introduced to this character as a ditzy blonde who's supposed to be really a princess, but has next to zero decision-making capabilities and follows requests from strange magic women who appear to her through swords she got from a man in a sports bra. And not only that, why is Shira even taking advice from the sorceress anyway? The second episode of He-Man ended on the message of not talking to strangers and was literally about how another sorceress, Evelyn, cool name, terrible character, was trying to trick them. Furthermore, every time she gets into trouble, she calls He-Man to come help her out. He-Man just got done saving his own planet. Now he has to get out of bed and travel to another planet? Like, not even like down the road. Man has to travel to another planet. I mean, granted, it's through a magic portal, so it's not like he had to get into a spaceship and check that he had enough fuel and make sure his insurance is in order and his space tax is up to date or whatever, but still, another planet. Man's trying to sleep here, but nah, has to go rescue his ditzy blonde twin sister. And by the way, why didn't anybody tell Prince Adam that he had a twin sister? Because it seems at least 4 people knew about her. He just gets sent to look for someone, isn't told who it is. How dangerous is that? Especially when you know my man was trying to get familiar. Dude came so close to doing the Skywalker. Anyway. Alright, now ThunderCats was not a spin-off of He-Man, but it was almost certainly greatly inspired by He-Man. Both He-Man and Lion-O had hyphenated names. They both wore sports bras, they both had cowardly pets, they both used magical swords as their primary weapon, they both call upon their swords when they needed help, and both their arch enemies were representations of death. The one difference is that ThunderCats had way more nudity. But even though it was a blatant rip-off, excuse me, I mean greatly inspired by He-Man, in my opinion, ThunderCats was the far superior show. ThunderCats was about a young Thunderian boy called Lion-O who had to flee his planets with other Thunderians because a planet was being destroyed. His father had already died, and in the first episode, the man that was looking after him, Jaga, dies as well. And then he's thrust into leadership of the ThunderCats. I mean, the dude literally goes from being a boy to a man in the time it takes to crash a spaceship. So we're dealing with some pretty deep concepts for a children's cartoon. So probably the biggest controversy of ThunderCats was why Lion-O went from being a boy to a man so quickly when no one else aged at all, or at least not very much. So real quick, after they fled from Thundera in a spaceship, everyone except for Jaga went to sleep in these suspension capsules. Now the suspension capsules were supposed to slow down aging, but when they land on a new planet, everyone is the same age except for Lion-O. Now, according to the ThunderCats Wiki, the reason for that is because there was a malfunction in Lion-O's suspension capsule. However, that's not mentioned in the show at all. And also, there's some other things that just don't quite add up. When Lion-O wakes up and gets out of the capsule, one side of his sports bra is ripped because he's now grown in size. Makes sense, right? So why is his boots and underpants still intact? Also, when they were in the spaceship, they get attacked by the mutants who try to steal from them. They try to steal the Sword of Omens, but the mutants fell, they're defeated, and the mutants, they go away. But the mutants then show up on the exact same planet shortly after the ThunderCats arrive. So how did the mutants know where the ThunderCats were going? Did they get lucky? Were they following them? And if they were following them, then how come Jaga didn't notice? I mean, I know Jaga dies, but you know the part when he was alive, how come he didn't notice? I mean, yeah, he's old and maybe not such good health, but still, that's pretty bad. And perhaps the biggest mystery is how was Panthro able to lie down with those S&M spikes sticking out of his back? So here's what I think happened, and this is my way of trying to explain as best as I can all those mysteries and all the other mysteries that happened throughout the entire run of ThunderCats. Aliens. Now, before I end this video, there were a ton of great cartoons throughout the 80s, and I can't talk about them all because we'll be here until Half-Life 3 gets released, but I do want to mention just a few of my favorites. Ewoks, Droids, Inspector Gadget, Mask, Transformers, back when it used to be good. Ulysses 31, that used to be on a Wednesday, every Wednesday. And I remember because my brother and I weren't allowed to watch TV until we'd done the vacuum. We had to vacuum the whole house. So, you know, we got that vacuuming done quick. So it was like, you know, we're not missing Ulysses. And that theme music was just crazy. I was like, Ulysses, Ulysses, flying through the galaxy. Oh, awesome, man. The Mysterious Cities of Gold, the Smurfs, Defenders of the Earth, another awesome theme as well. Defenders of the Earth, Defenders, dun, 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 dun. And also last but not least, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, except in the UK it was actually called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because for some reason they felt ninja was too violent or whatever. And that is what I think of 80s cartoons. What do you think? Thanks for the memories, or best left forgotten? Let me know down below, and if you liked this video, give it a like and share it amongst your friends. If you did not like it, then give it a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until whenever, if ever, and knowing is half the battle.